They fucking used Captain Marvel as like this fucking like nothing.
Yeah.
And hyped her as all this other shit, or she did. Because Marvel didn't fucking
Yeah, if anything, she was overselling it.
They never acknowledged fucking
No.
Captain Marvel as anything. No. They were just like, get the fucking movie out the door. They inserted her afterwards, filmed a couple scenes, and put her in fucking Endgame afterwards. And it's fucking clearly fucking spliced in.
Yeah.
In those last movies. Call it what you will, but I fucking it grinds to a halt when they fucking insert her and the momentum of the movie stops. And they have a fucking false ending for no reason where she fights Thanos and she's winning. And then, never mind, I'm going to go fucking fight something that's stopping me from fucking stopping this whole war from going. The whole reason we're here.
Yeah.
And then let Tony Stark have his ending, which took away from the fucking ending anyway. It almost fucking blew the ending for me.
Yeah.
It took some of the emotional fucking sting out of Stark dying, definitely, for me.
Well, and good on that movie for, being able to maintain enough of a balance through just probably one of the biggest, messiest CGI-filled, fight sequences. But being able to land it on an emotional sting at the end.
Yeah, but it fucking really did make me angry how they used Captain Marvel. And it's like they were doing good up to that point, and they could have found a reason to have her come in after that. You know what I mean? She could have shown up and been like, well, you guys managed just fine without me, blah, blah, blah. But
yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like it was always an afterthought.
She totally was.
That it had no place at any point, really, and that it was that they were getting a bunch of criticism, or they felt criticism was coming their way, and so it was, entirely reactionary to be able to, to take the character, do what they did with it. That none of it felt purposeful. It was all reactionary. Even the Captain Marvel movie itself was simply reactionary, just like the Black Widow movie that we're getting right now is completely reactionary.
Yeah, I agree.
I
agree. And it's like a nothing story, too, from what I understand. It's just like a nothing. It'll have no emotional ties to the fucking her death or anything else. They'll probably fucking like fart something out at the end.
If nothing else, it'll probably be, they'll use it as a way to introduce some characters that maybe they'll use as a stand-in for that kind of place that Black Widow filled.
That's a staple for this kind of franchise. But the main writers are out.
Yeah.
For this whole thing. They were there's two guys that were fucking keeping this whole thing together. And now they're just doing piece by piece to rebuild something. Somebody said that there might be doing the Dark Avengers or something next, or I don't know what the fuck is the plan, like Negaverse fucking Avengers, or like they might go off the fucking page completely and do something really bizarre with this whole multiverse of whatever. They might open up the whole Marvel Zombies as a reference. They'll never do a Marvel Zombies.
No,
those times are gone. Something like that though, where they have a reason to do a Spider-Verse thing or whatever. Because they got to work the X-Men in somehow, and they're getting to that point. This phase will end, and they're going to start massaging those fucking ingredients in.
It's going to be interesting to see if they try to bring in X-Men. Don't try to bring in classic like Jim Lee era X-Men,
the cool X-Men,
the one that everybody likes, and instead try to go with the current X-Men that we've got right now, where they're actually all basically fascist bad guys.
Essentially fascist bad guys. The thing is, they need to repaint fucking Cyclops and everything is cool again. They got to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
They really fucked up Cyclops, dude.
They did.
He was fucking bastardized through this whole everything. And they made him seem like such a fucking chump. And the actor was great. I think he was well cast. And I really like Cyclops. That's the fucked up thing. Is like they didn't know that they had bottled lightning with Hugh Jackman at the time.
Yeah.
And they just did the right thing by giving him a bigger part in the next movie because they felt, this guy can fucking carry it. Like, this guy can be the roguish badass that we need, right? Like, he fits.
Yeah.
It's a great fucking Wolverine. And nobody can argue that fact. You know what I mean? You can say that he could be cast as a different guy. And you've asked me that before, who would you cast as Wolverine? And I don't know. It has to be somebody that would fit the role physically, I think. But it's a charisma thing.
Yeah.
And Hugh Jackman has that likability, like Clint Eastwood.
Mm-hmm.
He can come off like Clint Eastwood as kind of how he's in Dirty Harry or whatever, where he's sandpapery, but you like him. You know what I mean? There's definitely there's enough grit there where you're like, this guy's a fucking hard ass, but I could totally see myself following him around and making this work. And Jackman pulls it off.
Yeah.
Because he's a brilliant actor.
Mm-hmm.
And I defend his fucking choices to go back into musicals and stuff like that too. I'd like to see him break that mold, which he's done so far successfully, in my opinion, with The Greatest Showman. But the guy who played Cyclops, he was in the Sonic movie.
Yeah.
And I forgot how much I liked him, even though they just let him play this vanilla whatever guy. And I was like, but that's ideally Scott for me, as he's just a regular guy, just a likable dude outside. Yeah. But when he's fucking Cyclops and he's running these Black Op units to hit these strike, whatever, they're doing something X-Men and fucking cool. Then he turns it on and he's the fucking leader. He's
the leader, yeah.
He's like a lot like Superman. It's the same qualities where he's like a really cool dude.
Yeah.
And him and Wolverine get along for the most part because he's a nice guy. Mm-hmm. Despite him wanting to fuck his girlfriend, you know what I mean? He's still like, they get along at a certain point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's just like a mutual respect there.
Yeah, because he earns it. Like he earns it in these combat missions where Wolverine's like he's fucking can carry his own shit. You know what I mean? He can take care of himself. I never painted it that way. I always used him as like this fucking like beta cuck fucking whatever. You know what I mean? And it's all editing and how they chose to fucking reset the film.
Yeah. Because
I know he fucking did some other stuff where he was great. Like the first 2 movies, he's doing cool X-Men shit. And then they fucking don't use him for anything. Like, see the cartoon. Look at the cartoon and tell me how they use Cyclops properly. And that's how they execute it. He carries all the way through the apocalypse stuff, Murder World, you name it. He's there holding it down for the team. And they fucking have to re-envision that and get away from Wolverine somehow in a way that's not going to fucking make people cringe. And I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be... Well, the whole concept of the X-Men, as far as in the continuity of the comics, was it was all made on its own.
Right.
It was never made to be something to cross over.
It's not integrated with anything else.
No.
Yeah, it's its own. That's why it's so powerful and stands alone so well on its own. There's no fucking crossovers with Spider-Man, no Fantastic Four. It's this.
Yeah, it wasn't until Secret Wars that they started actually mixing the waters and mixing the paints, but. Before that, everything just kind of generally existed isolated from each other.
Which is what made them stand out so hard as their own, with their own characters. And their characters were so strong because it was this crazy acknowledgement of racism.
Mm-hmm. You know well, because like Days of Future Past, that kind of a storyline doesn't work in an Avengers universe.
You can't.
And that's why it came out and everything, I believe, before... any Secret Wars or anything. And so it was just entirely, it's like, okay, X-Men universe, dark future, like, how would that play out? And if you, thematically, if you throw in Avengers into there, it's a completely different story.
Yeah, because they're not going to let that happen.
And so I don't get how they're going to try to introduce an X-Men storyline with the classic characters portrayed in a classic manner. So that's why I think they're going to go with this modern iteration of X-Men that is just really not going to sell well to people.
That stings, dude. You've been thinking about this as much as I have, I guess, too. I've been trying to really put thought into it because I was like, what I want out of it is not what we're going to get.
No.
Because Deadpool fucked that up for everybody. And how
it did, and people don't want to acknowledge the damage that Deadpool did.
He fucking
potentially
fucked
to
up
the franchise.
He fucked up the X-Men thing by making it a big joke.
Yeah.
And so like it was already a joke on its own, but it was due for like a solid reboot. You know what I mean? And they could have salvaged it with a solid reboot, but the popularity and success of Deadpool really fucking...
Well, you don't get a movie like Logan in the context of
which is why Logan
Deadpool.
Fucking worked because it was separate from everything
separated
else.
Its context away from everything else.
And it was like one of the best films of the whole franchise and it wasn't even really fucking tied to anything.
No.
And it just kind of loosely fit with the very first movie.
Mm-hmm.
and that's the only one they acknowledge is the very first movie, and then he kind of runs with that. You know what I mean? I think they go through. They don't even really talk about Jean or anything else.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just a touch on the first one, and it was like a love letter to what it should have been and could have been.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just a remembrance of how good the first movie was. Like, it's not a perfect movie, but
Yeah.
Proper use of characters, great casting. Fucking Ian McKellen is the bad guy. Fucking Patrick Stewart is the good guy. Fuck, like, you have everything kind of fitting in place. Darth Maul's the fucking Toad, which was weird, and like nobody knew that until way later.
Mm-hmm.
You have fucking Sabretooth fighting Wolverine. Everything was in there.
Yeah.
All the pieces I needed for X-Men were there. Despite like the cool suits and shit, like they didn't really.
Well, and like the whole idea of the X-Men just sort of being these almost sort of clandestine secret warrior type characters, more doing ninja shit or just stuff that isn't in the limelight, isn't in the, like we have
They-
this
yeah,
we have
they
this
do
whole
dirty jobs.
they do the dirty jobs, they do their all of their battles with the Brotherhood of Mutants and everything is, you know, mostly done in the background as much as they can.
It's like Gang Wars shit.
You
Where
know,
it's like, they
and
don't-
that was perfectly captured in that movie.
Yeah,
Where it's like our first battle, our first fight.
comes off as like a terrorist incident or something on the island.
Well,
of
it's
Ne-
that first fight where Sabretooth confronts them on the highway in the middle of Canada.
There you go. Yeah.
You
That's
know,
what
you're
I'm
like
talking about.
that's
Right.
that's the kind of shit that a small strike force type X-Men team would be getting into.
That's what made it feel right to me, man. Like
Yeah.
the cartoon
And so-
captures some of that kind of, but not.
When you have that the train station attack, when they get attacked at the train station and all the cops show up and everything, and it's
Right.
just it's a fucking nightmare. And you're like, you know, that has more weight because you kind of realize you're like, oh, all of this stuff has been kind of in the background because they know that public sentiment isn't really there for them. And so to have a massively public incident like this is a disaster.
Right.
This is horrible. You know, and you really get that in that movie. Whereas you get this last, what was it, Dark Phoenix, where they're doing these very,
Whoa, I
very
forgot that
public.
is out and everything, huh?
Yeah.
That's already out.
But
Wow.
the X-Men in that one are very public. They're very, you know, out there. Everybody knows what they're all about. And it's, you know, to the point of parody where they're being referred to as superheroes and they don't like it because it just feels too much like parody for them. You know,
Yeah.
and it's too much of a self-commentary on itself at that point that you completely... it completely loses any thematic realism at that
And
point.
they lost it around the second one too because they like used that as like a fucking origin story for Wolverine. That's where the problem came from, is forefronting and showcasing Jackman as a fucking great actor,
Yeah.
which is a great. I like the second one, but that's where all the X-Men stuff falls apart because it's all about Wolverine at that point. And they're
Right.
like, how can we make
There's-
Wolverine fucking cooler? Then they do this Dark Phoenix thing, which is now about just Wolverine and the Dark Phoenix, basically. Like, you have your Juggernaut, which is like, he's like half-ass used, you know what I mean? Like, there's something.
There's a lot of half-ass stuff in that
And
movie.
Nightcrawler's there, and it's like, okay, like Nightcrawler's here, Mystique is around, but it's not. There's no focus on fucking any X-Men anything,
No.
and it all falls off like after that, probably like halfway. No, it's what one is where fucking what's his name dies. Cyclops gets killed off at the beginning of 3,
At the beginning of 3, yeah.
but they already like fucked this up because she dies at the end of 2.
She gets smashed when the dam breaks.
That's it. She's killed off at the end, allegedly at the end
yeah.
of the movie, right? But they highlight something in the end of before the credits. They show like a
yeah,
Phoenix
they show the
symbol,
Phoenix,
which
flying
is like,
over the water, yeah.
As a kid, I was like, ugh, like we're fucking already going to
We're
Phoenix. Town.
already doing Phoenix.
Like that's
Yeah.
a fucking a burn that should go, because they could have done these like ragtag movies,
Yeah.
strike ops movies. Like I would have loved that if they could do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm kind of hoping for with them working it in, is the events of Endgame have somehow created mutants, right? Like you can maybe work that in. it's caused mutations. Everybody being wished back has caused mutations on the strands.
Yeah, and we're gonna tie it into scrolls somehow.
What the fuck, scrolls? What do you mean the scrolls?
Oh yeah, they're already trying to get freaking secret invasion stuff going with the scrolls.
Where?
There was I guess a stinger after this last Spider-Man movie that showed that
Oh
the
my
Nick
god, I
Fury-
forgot about that.
Yeah, the Nick
Okay.
Fury that we saw in that movie was actually a scroll the whole time.
Wow, fucking, I'm ready to drink some bleach. It's weird how they just picked a hill to die on so early.
Well, yeah, and it's it's running into a problem that most media franchises do when they get going, getting a little long in the tooth, is that they start trying to chase too many things at once. They're not picking a lane.
Yep.
This last run was pretty tight as far as trying to set up an Infinity War thing.
Do you think
But
this is
now we're going to do, a Secret Invasion along with a Secret Wars and probably a Civil War 2 they'll
Do you
probably
think
throw in halfway through.
Do you
and
think
then
the fucking wheels will fall off before it gets there?
I think it will.
This is the end
I
of
think it
comic
will.
book
I
movies
think-
for the most
I
part.
think,
we're running out of fucking gas in this car.
Yeah, I see. As far as the major franchises, they've got a life of maybe 3 or 4 more years before it just completely falls off the rails.
Well,
and
so
they
that's
just
why I'm staking my fucking claim on X-Men in the future, because I'm counting on that fallout.
yeah.
And I just assumed you assumed the same thing as me, where it's gonna we're running out of fucking options.
Yeah, we're losing it. Yeah.
We're gonna fall out of X-Men movies and everything. DC's already out of the game for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
They've put everything else on hold. Marvel released their next phase of movies. They didn't even seem that fucking jazzed about it.
No.
There's a few gems in there, and there might be some cool stuff for the streaming services.
Well, and they announced a whole bunch of TV series and stuff, but they can't get any of them off of the ground, and any of the ones that they are going to get off the ground aren't even really relevant to anything, so nobody's even interested in them.
No, everything's put on the back burner, and the comic book industry is in flames also, which is where
Yeah.
we're coming to the end of all things.
Yeah.
And all good things must come to an end, right?